Britain's worst ever child grooming gang scandal exposed. Hundreds of young girls raped, beaten, sold for sex, and some even killed. Authorities failed to act over 40 years, despite repeated warnings to social workers, with up to 1,000 girls, some young as 11, abused in Telford. The rape hell of vulnerable young girls in Telford went on for a shocking 40 years, with as many as 1,000 children having suffered mercilessly at the hands of perverts and torturers since the 1980s. Girls as young as 11 have been lured from their families to be drugged, beaten and raped in an epidemic that the victims say is still ongoing. Well, why is this ongoing? Why are the British police so afraid of arresting adult men who are raping and beating and occasionally murdering young children? Oh, what's that? Authorities failed to keep details of abusers from Asian communities for fear of racism? Oh, so nothing to do with far-left ideology then? Nothing to do with running around smearing everyone you don't like as a racist, even if those people are pointing out that Asian, quote-unquote, men are raping young, defenseless girls. What's that? Council staff decided to blame the victims and viewed the abused and trafficked children as prostitutes instead of victims, according to the previously unseen files. Holy fuck, this is sounding remarkably like what happened in Rotherham. Specialist child abuse solicitor Dino of Bolton, Burn Kemp said these children were treated as sexual commodities by men who inflicted despicable acts of abuse. The survivors deserve an inquiry. They need to know how abuse took place for so long and why so many perpetrators have never been brought to justice. It's gangs of Muslim men who think of them as white sluts, and the council are so fucking petrified to arrest them because they're brown and fucking afraid of being called racists that they would rather let children get raped than be accused publicly of being a bigot. How's that? Do you think it'll be anything like that? And you might think, oh, you're being too mean. You're jumping to conclusions. You don't know. Yeah, maybe I don't. But let's just listen to the victims for a minute and see what they have to say. One 14-year-old, groomed and abused after a phone number was sold to paedophiles, said, I hated what was happening and my abusers made my skin crawl. But I was told that if I said a word to anyone, they'd come for my little sisters and tell my mum was a prostitute. Night after night, I was forced to have sex with multiple men in disgusting takeaways and filthy houses. I must have been getting the morning after pill from the local clinic at least twice a week, but nobody asked any questions. I fell pregnant twice and had 2 abortions. Hours after my second termination, I was taken by one of my abusers to be raped by more men. Just random men. No particular details given. So Sheila Taylor of the NWG network worked on the Rotherham inquiry. She said that the true scale of the Telford problem might never be known, just like in Rotherham, because many victims were unlikely to come forward. She said, there's probably a whole cohort of young people that are not identified. We are good at identifying white girls, but are less able to identify young men, young people from ethnic minority backgrounds, from travelling communities, or with learning or other disabilities. Yeah, I bet you fucking are. A police investigation called Operation Chalice identified more than 100 potential victims abused between 2007 and 2009. The cops said there could also be as many as 200 perpetrators. But just 9 were caged in, then the case was closed. There we go, it's all done. And what do you think their opinion on young white women in Britain are? Oh, it's respectful, is it? Are they all a bunch of fedora tippers, are they? Or do they think that white women are good for only one thing, for people like me to fuck and use as trash? There are people who are going to call me a racist, even though I can actually name these perpetrators. But the far left doesn't give a shit, and like I said, it's not like these people haven't even fucking killed people either. For example, Lucy Lowe, 16, was killed in 2000 along with her mother and sister after her 26-year-old abuser, Azhar Ali Mahmood, set fire to their house. He targeted her in 1997 when she was just 14, when she gave birth to his daughter. He was jailed for murdering her and her mum and her 17-year-old sister, but he was never arrested nor charged in connection with any child sex crimes over his illegal relationship with the schoolgirl. Her death was used as a warning to other girls, according to victims. One drugged and gang-raped by 9 men 2 years later said the threats drove her to attempted... I can't keep fucking reading this. In 2002, 13-year-old Becky Watson died in a car accident that was reported at the time as a prank. Oh yeah, what happened there? The Mirror investigation found she suffered 2 years of an abuse by an Asian grooming gang, which began when she was just 11. Fucking hell! Of course she fucking was. Of course she fucking was. And like I said, I bet I get punished for reading this article. Her diaries were obtained by the Mirror, and they reveal her torment at being made to sleep around. Her mum said she repeatedly told police that Becky was being abused, and even gave them a list of suspects. She told the Sunday Mirror girls like Becky were treated like criminals. I was crying out for help, but I felt like I had nowhere to turn. If Becky's abuse had been properly investigated by the authorities, more girls could have been saved from going through this hell. The authorities care about racism. They do not care about British citizens. They do not care about the victimization of you by brown people. They don't care. They have an ideological block. It's being done by a brown person, therefore... So I think I'm going to bring the video to a close there. I was probably going to talk about more of it, but I'm just really sick of this fucking subject. I'm sick of hearing about this fucking happening in my country. I think this is absolute fucking barbarism.